Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something huge, something that's, well, everywhere now. Artificial intelligence, AI. It's in so many industries, companies shaping our lives daily. And that brings us to our big question for this deep dive, the ethics of AI. Who's really in control? We all hear the promise, right? Smarter, faster, more efficient living. And a lot of that's true. But as AI gets more powerful, you have to wonder, are we steering the ship? Or is AI kind of subtly nudging things, maybe embedding its own biases, making calls that affect us in ways we don't even see? We've got some really striking examples, some eye-opening data, and maybe a few surprising facts lined up. Okay, let's unpack this. So first off, just how fast has AI taken over? It feels like it went from sci-fi to, well, my phone, my job applications, everything. It's not just gadgets. It's deep inside really critical stuff. Hiring processes, big financial decisions, healthcare, even criminal justice systems. Just to give you a sense of the scale, look at hiring. By 2023, the US market for AI recruitment tools, about $2.5 billion. And growing fast, like 7-8% a year.
AI's big sell is speed and scale. Scanning millions of resumes in seconds, it's incredibly efficient. But here's the catch, the really critical part. That same speed, that scale, it can blow up existing problems. Because AI can, it can inherit our human biases.
That's exactly right. And the efficiency, while great on paper, it creates this sort of new kind of systemic risk. It's not like one biased person making a bad call. It's bias scaled up instantly across potentially millions of decisions. What's fascinating here is how that bias spreads. It's almost exponential because the systems are built for speed, not necessarily for fairness out of the box. And it makes it really hard to even spot sometimes or measure. How do you find that tiny bias thread woven into this massive, fast-moving system? It's tough.
A new class of systemic risk. Wow, that puts it starkly. And it leads perfectly into a real-world case that shows exactly this inherited bias problem. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about Amazon's AI hiring tool back in, 2018? They built it to sift through resumes, pick the best candidates. Makes sense, right? Save time. Except it didn't like female candidates. It consistently scored them lower, favored men. And the why is the crucial lesson here. It was trained on resumes from the last 10 years. And back then, tech was very male-dominated.
So it learned the pattern.
Exactly. Biased input, biased output. It seems obvious now, but it's a powerful example. AI isn't inherently neutral. And it wasn't just Amazon. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, they saw over 30 complaints about AI hiring tools causing bias just in 2021, 2022. That's like quite a few compared to usual hiring issues.
It really highlights the scale, doesn't it? And that Amazon example, it's powerful.
Definitely. But is it just about old biased data? Or can developers, maybe unintentionally, build bias in, even if the data looks okay on the surface?
Oh, that's a really good question. Historical data is a huge factor, no doubt, but bias can sneak in other ways too. Think about how the goal is defined for the AI, or what metrics are used to judge success. If you just tell an AI, be efficient or predict success without adding specific fairness rules, it might find shortcuts in the data, shortcuts that hurt certain groups, even if the data seem diverse. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, AI isn't neutral. It reflects the data, yes, but also the choices, the assumptions, even the unconscious biases of the people building it. We really need to scrutinize where that data comes from and how the AI is set up.
Right, the assumptions baked into the code itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to the core question. Who actually controls this stuff? Who's pulling the levers? It seems like there are three main groups in the mix. First, you've got the giants, big tech. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, OpenAI. They're largely deciding which models get built, how they're trained, what they do. Huge power there.
Immense power, really.
Then there's governments. The US government, for example, is trying to get a handle on it, talking about regulation. But it's slow going. There isn't, one big federal law yet saying, here's how you prevent bias or stop misuse.
It's complex territory for lawmakers.
Absolutely. And then the third group, that's end users. That's you listening. That's us. We feed these systems data constantly, often without even thinking about it.
They click every search.
Yeah. But we have very little say, usually, in how the AI uses that data or what decisions it makes about us. Here's a shocking fact that underlines this. A 2022 survey found 60% of Americans didn't even know their personal data was being used to train AI models. 60%.
Wow, that knowledge gap. This raises an important question about the sheer imbalance of power, doesn't it?
Yep.
If most people don't know their data is the fuel, then the companies holding that data, refining it with AI, they have enormous influence, often invisible influence. And you mentioned the U.S. regulatory landscape being slow. It's interesting to contrast that with, say, the European Union. They're pushing ahead with their AI Act, trying to set quite strict rules, especially for high-risk AI. So you have this global divergence happening too, which adds another layer of complexity to who's in control and what rules apply where.
That's a great point, the international dimension. And these control issues, these biases, they don't just affect hiring or tech use. They seep into really fundamental parts of life. Let's look at some other areas. Take healthcare. AI diagnosis tools, like IBM Watson Health was meant to be. They're trying to help doctors. But studies showed some systems struggled to spot things like skin cancer accurately on patients with darker skin tones. That's a potentially deadly bias.
A huge disparity in outcome based on data representation.
Then there's criminal justice. Tools like Compass, software that predicts the risk of someone reoffending.
Yeah.
It's actually used in U.S. courts for sentencing, parole.
High-stakes decisions.
Very high stakes. And research suggests these tools can be biased against black defendants, giving them higher risk scores unfairly.
Perpetuating cycles.
Exactly. And financial credit. AI is deciding who gets loans more and more. What if a training data doesn't properly represent certain communities or reflects old biases? Those groups get locked out. It just reinforces inequality.
What's fascinating here is when you connect these dots, healthcare, justice, finance, you see this pattern emerging. AI isn't just automating tasks, it's automating and sometimes amplifying existing societal inequalities. These aren't just like technical glitches. They are deeply ethical problems hitting people's health, their freedom, their economic chances, often quietly, subtly, but with massive impact.
So what does this all mean? When we talk about ethical AI, what are we really aiming for? It's got to be more than just no bias.
So much more. Bias is critical, but it's one piece.
Yeah. Ethical AI needs a few key things, like transparency. We should be able to understand how AI reaches a decision, not just accept the output from a black box.
Which is technically very challenging.
Right. Then accountability. If an AI gets it wrong, who's responsible? We need clarity on that. And maybe the biggest one, fairness. Making sure AI creates equal opportunity, treats all communities equitably. But here's the tension. A 2023 survey showed 80% of AI researchers want explainable AI. They want that transparency. Yet, 50% of the models out there are still basically black boxes.
That gap is huge.
It is. So, given how complex these things are, like large language models, neural networks, how practical is it to get real transparency and accountability?
That's the core challenge, isn't it? This raises an important question about the inherent tension here. These models, especially the advanced ones, operate in ways that, frankly, even their creators don't always fully grasp step by step.
Yeah.
That black box problem makes true transparency incredibly hard. You can't always get a simple, neat explanation.
So accountability becomes murky too.
Exactly. If you can't fully trace the why, assigning responsibility is complicated. Is it the data, the algorithm, the developers, the deployer? It's distributed. And fairness. That's not just tweaking numbers, it needs really intentional design. You have to actively build for equity, not just hope bias disappears. It's a much deeper intervention.
So let's circle back. Who's really in control? We've got big tech driving development, governments playing catch up on rules, and users, often unaware, just providing the raw material.
A very uneven landscape.
Definitely. And the stakes are enormous. We mentioned the economic side. AI could create something like $500 billion in U.S. economic impact by 2024. That's massive potential.
Huge numbers.
But that massive potential sits right next to massive risks if we don't get the ethics right. Biased hiring, unfair loans, healthcare disparities, even misinformation spread by AI.
So with that huge economic promise, $500 billion, you can see why some might argue, let's innovate first, worry about the ethics later. How do we counter that?
That's the push and pull, isn't it?
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that innovate first approach, while tempting for short-term gains, carries huge long-term costs. You risk eroding public trust, deepening those inequalities we talked about, and ultimately creating systems that just aren't sustainable because they're unfair. That can stifle real inclusive progress down the line. So, true progress has to mean balancing that amazing innovation with rock-solid ethical responsibility. They have to go hand in hand, not one after the other. We need to ask if those gains are worth it if fairness and trust get sidelined.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so it sounds complex, maybe even a bit daunting, but it's not hopeless. So what can we do? What are the solutions? There are real steps being taken. First, regulation. Like that AI Bill of Rights the U.S. government is working on, trying to give users more protection, demand more transparency.
Essential guardrails.
Second, auditing AI models. proper independent checks to make sure they're not biased
Yeah.
and are working like they should, not just the companies checking their own homework.
Independent validation is key.
Third, diverse data. This is fundamental. Training AI on data that actually reflects everyone is crucial for fairness.
Garbage in, garbage out still applies, so good data in.
Exactly. And fourth, awareness. Just helping people understand how their data is used, what AI is doing. Education is power here. And check this out. Here's a fun fact, sort of. Researchers at places like MIT and Harvard, they're testing something called counterfactual fairness. Basically, the AI imagines different hypothetical scenarios before deciding, trying to actively reduce bias. It's like teaching AI to think, what if, ethically.
That's fascinating. And what's fascinating here is that shift towards proactive design. Counterfactual fairness isn't just about cleaning up bad data. It's about teaching the AI to reason more equitably.
Building ethics in.
Precisely. And all these solutions, regulation, auditing, good data, awareness, they all work together. Regulation sets the rules, audits check compliance, diverse data provides the foundation, and awareness empowers everyone to demand better. It shows that building ethical AI isn't just a job for coders. It needs everyone, creators, governments, users, you working together.
So summing up this deep dive, AI is clearly an incredible, powerful tool. It can do amazing things. But that question of control, of ethics, it's not going away. It's central. Without getting those ethical frameworks right, intentionally, we risk losing the benefits and amplifying the harms, bias, inequality, distrust. The stakes are really high. So our advice to you listening, stay curious. Educate yourself about AI's impact. And don't be afraid to demand transparency and accountability from the companies using this tech.
Absolutely. And maybe one final thought to leave you with, building on that idea of proactive design, like counterfactual fairness. How much active human imagination do we really need to inject into AI development? Not just technically, but ethically. Are we just reacting to problems after they happen, or can we truly imagine and design AI systems that actively build a more equitable, just future from the start, rather than just hoping fairness emerges somehow? It pushes us beyond just fixing code towards a more human-centered vision for AI's role in our society.